Hello and a warm collisions YYC welcome to my guest this morning, Ms. Karin Borgersen. How are you doing, Karin? Thank you so much for coming on. We had the privilege of speaking together, or being on stage together, I should say, at Tech Thursday. And it was a great event. Loved your energy, loved your perspective on the world, and was really excited. As everyone knows, I love to have people on the show so we can go a little bit deeper. Panel discussions are awesome, but I don't always get to go down every rabbit hole that I want to. So I'll give a quick intro and then you can let us know what's your world. You are Director, Customer Product Solutions and Marketing at ENMAX. Let us into the tent. What do you do? I don't think ENMAX needs any introduction, but what do you do in the context of ENMAX? And then let's kick off a cool conversation about lifecycle marketing.
Sounds great. Yeah. So I lead our product and marketing team for the ENMAX portfolio, which is essentially ENMAX's retail energy arm of their business. I know you had Miss Jana Mosley on a couple of years ago. She talked a lot about the structure at ENMAX and from the perspective of ENMAX Power. So I actually work on, the retail energy side of ENMAX. And like I said, I lead all of our product and marketing activity.
So thinking, who's your, is it the consumer at large? Like who is your customer personally and who you're always thinking about?
Yes. So our customer base are essentially all households in Alberta. So ENMAX retails electricity, natural gas, and solar products to households across the province. I think a lot of people are surprised to learn that ENMAX is actually an Alberta-wide product available. So while ENMAX Power serves Calgary and the city of Calgary from a wires provider perspective, ENMAX actually retails energy across the province.
Thank you. I also did not know that. So I'm part of the audience you just described. Many people don't know. What's that size? Like, do you do it by household? I'm assuming like a number of households. What's that market size look like?
Market size is a little over 1.6 million households.
Nice. That's a number you can do something with.
That's right.
From a marketing and product and communications perspective.
For sure.
And everybody needs what you sell. I say need in quote because there are other providers, and we have we have an interesting market in Alberta. But when you think about that is the pure potential of who you have access to market to.
That's right. It's an essential service. Every household needs energy. And it's also an essential service that's transforming very quickly with the energy transition, with people investing in things like rooftop solar, electric vehicles. It's a really interesting time to be in this industry. It's certainly not the sleepy utility that many people think.
The boring utility Crown Corp that sits behind and no one pays any attention. Not the case. How long have you been in the role?
I've been at ENMAX for a little over a year. Prior to that, I spent just over 10 years working for Shaw. So I held a variety of roles in and around marketing, everything from pricing to analytics, customer base management. And then, last May, I made the move with the Rogers acquisition of Shaw Communications. It was a good time for me to make a move and think about some experience in a different industry. And you can see a lot of the parallels between telco and energy. It's literally the same customer base. Every household needs an internet provider. Every household needs electricity and natural gas here in Alberta. So a lot of the work that I do and the outcomes that we were driving in telco are applicable in this space.
Just the product itself being one is my access to my entertainment, often in my communication set, versus I need to turn the lights on. Just from your perspective, does the consumer look at them differently? Because I understand how they would show up very similar from a business, and we need to attract customers and retain and churn, and a lot of those numbers, a lot of those KPIs are probably similar, or things they focus on. But from a customer perspective, like how different is how the customer, from the way you see it, the customer looks at one versus the other?
Yeah, so I think historically, people don't spend a lot of time thinking about their power or their energy. It's just one of those things.
I just want it to work.
We just want it to work. Whereas in the telco space, I mean, certainly, most telcos offered things like internet and cable TV and landline phones, things like that. In that space, there's a little bit more room where, customers can actually differentiate between different providers. There's a different interface on your cable box and there's different speeds and technology that deliver faster upload speeds, things like that. Whereas power and natural gas, there's not a lot of ways to differentiate yourselves historically from the competitors. They're a commodity. They just need to work. But like I said, I think that's changing. And certainly when you look at markets across the world that are maybe a little farther ahead than us in the energy transition, there is a ton of room, and utilities and retail energy providers are really having to think differently about how they serve their customers, how they market to their customers. And I think it's going through a massive transformation. So I think that's changing.
Am I correct to think when you and I chatted, you'd referenced, I think it was a company in the UK that had taken a very revolutionary approach? Is that where you look for inspiration? And then we're going to get into life cycle marketing here in a second, but my curiosity's got me on that one. Where does Karin get inspired?
Yes. Yeah. I think the company I was referencing last time we talked was Octopus Energy.
That's right.
And they're a perfect example. They're a UK based energy provider. And, they're based in the UK, but they are growing at a phenomenal rate across the globe. I think the last time I looked, they were operating in 18 different countries. And their big differentiator in the retail energy space is all around billing and customer service. They've developed a software that they call Kraken, and it's absolutely revolutionizing the way they serve their customers. And really their secret sauce is about being able, and it's directly related to lifecycle marketing, but it's all about their software that allows them to see kind of every part of their customer's energy life in real time. So, do they have an electric car plugged in? How much energy are their solar panels producing? How much energy are they consuming? And it pairs that information with every single interaction that they've had in the contact center or digitally and online. And it's using kind of that well-rounded 360 view of their customer to really serve them differently. So those are the kinds of things that I think are just kind of completely changing the space in the energy industry that I'm in, and really are directly tied to how you market and talk and serve your customers.
The word that jumps out for me as you're talking is personalization. What am I doing? How does it pick me? It's giving me data, but it's giving it in a way that I understand how my actions correlate to my expense. That is so powerful as we all wear smartwatches and we all look, how was your sleep last night? Let me look at my data. What's my power consumption? Most of us don't really know until we get the bill. And that level of personalization kind of makes sense if you think about the rest of the world and where we grow to expect it. So really, you said it, a 360-degree view of the customer. Talk to me in reference. Let's set the table here. Lifecycle marketing. If you're listening to this, you probably have a clue what it is, but at the same time, I never like to assume. I like to treat everything like a new, fresh idea. Let's talk about lifecycle marketing and then talk about the importance and the reality of having a 360-degree view of our customer and how that all plays together.
Sure. So I think about lifecycle marketing really at the heart of it about identifying and capitalizing on those key shopping moments for your customers. So what are those moments and what levers do you have to kind of earn their business during that time?
Mic drop. Pause for effect. Lifecycle the shopping moments, kind of the moments that matter. And that was a term I started floating around a few years back. So thinking about that, that can seem very overwhelming from how much data do we have and how aware and how much is the voice of the customer to act, the difference between what the customer is going through to what we think they're going through. Can you talk about that a little bit from an organizational perspective? Lots of times we think we know when we don't actually know what the friction point is or what the opportunity is or what jobs to be done, some of that concept around when the customer is going through. So at the size of organization you work at with the size of potential audience, how do you balance between this is what we think the customer is going through to actually knowing what those moments are?
Right. Okay, so maybe I'll try to articulate this through the lens of the industries that I'm most familiar with, knowing that these are going to be different for different industries, different business models, those types of things. But if we think about, we've talked about internet and electricity, both as these kind of essential services. But I mean, the reality is they're essential, but they're a little bit of what we call grudge purchases, right?
Okay.
They don't bring people, although they're essential, they don't bring people a lot of joy. Opening up your utility bill every month.
There's not a lot of self-actualization through the brand that you chose to power your house.
That's right? Like nobody's walking around every day thinking about, their
and no insult to any of the
electricity.
major brands that make our lives better. It's different
That's
than look at my new running shoes or look at my new whatever, right?
That's right?
Yeah.
Nobody's walking around thinking about their electricity and internet providers on a regular basis. But there are times where it suddenly becomes top of mind, like when you're moving or when your contract's up for expiry or, when, here in Alberta, maybe TELUS is laying fiber in your neighborhood and they're knocking on your door.
And we're all getting that message in our mailboxes about fiber's now available. Yeah, totally.
That's right. Or, back in January, everybody in Alberta will remember this. We had a really cold snap. Suddenly we were sitting in minus 40-degree weather. And do you remember that Saturday night we suddenly got that emergency
like around 5:30 or 6 o'clock, right at the peak of it, right? When you're making dinner.
Right. Suddenly saying, hey, Albertans, we are using so much electricity. The grid is about to shut down. So can you please turn off your Christmas lights or you do those things? And then, many of us kind of a month, 6 weeks later after that event, we suddenly got hit with like a really high natural gas bill and energy bill that was directly related to that event, right? So there's these moments where suddenly you find customers in this industry thinking about their electricity provider, thinking about their products, thinking about their services. So that's what I mean when I say moments that matter. You have to identify what those moments are. And then you can layer things on top of it, like, demographics, socioeconomic, like customer personas, things like that. Because I think a lot of people think lifecycle marketing is synonymous with personas. And I don't disagree that those things play a material role in our buying decisions, but they're effective when they're layered on top of those key moments that matter and making sure that you're thinking about those moments, pulling things and levers that you have in your toolkit to win those customers' business in that moment. Then you can layer things like, demographics and persona on top of them, but it has to start up with the foundation of the moments that matter to your customers.
That was an excellent description. Thank you for walking that. Was very passionate and very clear and succinct. So taking back to the January event, to be able to react means you were already prepared and informed on who your customers are, what they care about, like back to the demographics, psychographics, and having that profile. So when that event happened, did your team like literally the Monday morning go, this has happened, let's map out how we see this kind of playing out? Like taking the foundation, which I'm going to play 80-20 for lack of better percentage. We know who our customers are. We know what matters to them. But this was in the 20% of like the bit of the black swan. We could have predicted it, but most of us who got that message didn't say, oh, I was expecting that. That is not how that went down on that Saturday night. So then how do you react as a team in a big machine the size of ENMAX and a large, I'm a little startup. I'm pivoting literally every second day, it feels like, but I'm a big organization. Sometimes there's a perception of like, how quick can the speedboat be when it's a larger ship?
For sure. And look, I would love to tell you that, yes, right after that moment, we quickly went into action and we had all these systems and processes and segmentation and lifecycle strategies in place. But, I want to keep this conversation real and be
Karin,
transparent.
I value your honesty, hence why we're talking.
Right? And I'm relatively new in the role, and I'm certainly relatively new in the industry. I've only been here a little over a year, but I think what my kind of early experience has been is transparently the retail energy industry is actually slightly behind in this space. Okay. Certainly compared to telco. And I think there's a lot of good reasons for that. Maybe just out of necessity, the competitive environment historically has kind of really forced telcos to invest in things like data and marketing automation and some of the foundational capabilities that are required that transparently, electricity and utilities haven't had to. But like I said, I think that's changing, and I think it's changing quickly. So, I think there's a lot of opportunity, which is why I'm really excited to be in this industry, in this space.
It makes a lot of sense. And I think I talk to so many companies, they're like, oh, well, that's for that sector because they need to be more innovative. We've been doing it the same way. There's so many, especially think about Alberta, the amount of companies, organizations there are here, small, medium, large, that have been running the way they've been running for many years that are all now getting the left hook of, let's just call it digital transformation, kind of coming at
That's
them
right.
left, right, and center. So I think first thing is it's okay just to not be there yet. It's not okay to not be thinking about what there might be.
That's right. And you think about, many organizations and industries experience this. These are organizations that have been around for over a century, right?
Yeah.
And so you think about all the systems and technical debt and all these cobbled together processes, and they really aren't conducive to doing the kind of things that we're talking about. And so you've got to really be mindful about investing in some of those foundational capabilities to be able to do this well. So I'm excited to be a part of the transformation to get this industry there.
I love it. So from your perspective, can you give us a little bit, without giving away trade secrets, of course, but give us a little bit of the crawl, walk, run, because you've come into the new role in an organization that is an established player that has been doing what they're doing for a long time, which, let's be honest, it's about the ability to distribute and the price that I'm getting and do my lights work. And now, like you said, this is becoming way more. The amount of friends I'm talking about putting solar, do they get a battery system? Do they plug in there? Like it's become top of mind just because society is moving us in a direction. So for you coming into the role, what are some of those foundational pieces that you started with in the crawl phase? I'm just using that one because it's an easy crawl, walk, run. What are those first few blocks that you started to put in place going, okay, before we can do X, we need to get this foundation built?
Yeah. So I think the first step is to take stock of the data and analytics that are going to inform what do we have, right? And so you got to start with, things like how do you connect to the systems and processes across the organization that house the data that will inform your strategy. So things like, what products and services do my customers subscribe to? Do they have, I'm drawing from, the industries that I'm familiar with, but they'll vary depending on the sector. But do they have an upcoming contract expiry? Have they recently called into the contact center or visited your website or logged into your online portal? Things like, how are they using and interacting your products and services? Are they, super engaged? Are they regular consumers? Are they more once or twice a year tapping into your products? And then, there's going to be a set of data and attributes that live within the four walls of your organizations. But, like we talked about, people don't just make buying decisions based on the way that they're interacting with you. There's all kinds of kind of external factors, demographics, socioeconomic factors, social values. So that's where you need to, once you've taken stock of everything inside your organization and been really mindful about how you organize it and kind of write the logic layer on top of it, then you start to think about how can I layer on top of that third-party data. These are, in my industry, if moving, I'll give an example, but if moving is a key moment, there are indicators and third-party data sets you can buy that identify people as more likely to move. I think we've all been in that situation when we're about to move, we're suddenly getting targeted by mortgage companies and all types of things. And it's because those data sets and that information outside of the organization.
And sometimes we trick ourselves into thinking it's because our phone's listening, but actually we're giving the world all the data it needs to figure that out. It doesn't have to actually eavesdrop on you.
That's right.
That's a myth. The illusion of like, how would they know? Because all of your little indicators that an algorithm is mapping out, and that can be a little bit scary and creepy. It also just happens to be the world we live in.
That's right.
Just thinking about the respect, like what you said, you made it sound so approachable and so easy, but just analyzing that, the tools, the thinking, the team you would need, at the size of organization you are, that's a significant amount of data to analyze to even identify what do we have and how in what way does it matter? That's such an interesting transition between, okay, we have a huge pool of data. Okay, now what? Because often that data wasn't collected with the intention of asking it the questions that you're now asking it. I'm assuming also just being respectful of maybe how long that can take.
For sure. An organization's data strategy is a long-term investment, but it's a critical one.
Yeah.
And I, don't get me wrong, we'll talk about some of the really exciting, emerging technologies around AI and things like that. But at the end of the day, you don't need AI to form a really solid foundation of your data strategy. You actually, sure, it can help, but what you actually need is really just investments in piecing together those key attributes and then really creating, like I said, that segmentation and logic layer so that you take all of those individual data points and you use them to segment your customer into meaningful segments that will actually inform your lifecycle marketing strategy. And it's really foundational. It maybe isn't the sexiest AI or upcoming technology, but I actually think it's the first step to really doing this well.
I love that you said that. And I also want to just pay homage to how easy it is to get distracted by the shiny AI tool that's not going to solve your problem if you haven't put that foundation that you just mentioned in place.
That's right.
AI is not the answer to everything. But it is shiny. It's shiny as heck, and it can be used. And I really appreciate that. And so many of these organizations, the longer you've been around and the more you've been collecting data, almost the more challenging, because how disparaging or disconnected, I should say is a better word, that it is from marketers have only ever been as good as the insights we had, and then the experience and our know how to do it. The promise of this like deluge of insights and customer information, it's very exciting as a marketer, because that's the grist for the marketing mill or the lifecycle mill, right?
That's right.
So that's the crawl. So now let's talk about walk. And maybe you've got a little bit of these insights. You're starting to go, oh, okay. I start to, as a team. Oh, maybe first question, is that business analyst? Like, who are you bringing in as the lifecycle marketer in your role to help you pull all that together? Because that's a very specific skill set in my mind.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say there's, when I think about key partners in the business as a lifecycle marketer. We talked a little bit about data and analytics teams. So this is everybody from your kind of deep technical and IT teams that understand your data. You've got data analysts that are stitching it together in a 360 degree view and customer segmentation model. The other kind of key partner in doing this well is your frontline teams. In my case, the customer care team, or whoever the equivalent of your frontline team is that's dealing with your customers day to day. They're the ones who have the best view of the customer. So I just think that's a partnership that as you're thinking about this model, you're thinking about being effective, you need to have them at the table, both to inform your data strategy and your segmentation, but also to give you really direct and clear insight into what winning looks like with your customers. And also, ultimately, once you've done all of your segmentation, you've put in all of these systems and processes to execute on them, you need to make it really simple and clear for those frontline care agents what winning looks like when they're talking to customers. Yeah. So it's at both ends of the life cycle. They're a critical partner.
And would you say that just on the evolution of things, are we getting to a point where they're like that group you spoke about is being seen as valuable as they are? Because like the organizations of the past was this top down kind of, we have all the magic answers. Now minions, you will go and execute on it. But more I talk to people, they're like, get close to your customer. The only way to do that is to deal with the people that are actually connecting with them, versus that we will set the strategy at the highest levels of power and you will execute. And we all know that it doesn't sound silly saying it out loud.
That's right. I think so. I think you're seeing more and more of that around, I think I read an article just a little while ago, and the title of it was "Strategy Without Execution is Hallucination." And that kind of just told it all, right? Yep. It's, if you're not connected in, your customer care team, your frontline sales teams, they are part of your strategy. And so to me, those partnerships are just key, and consistent and constant feedback with those groups is critical.
And I would assume they also there's a level of ownership. There's a level of like, I'm involved. You cared about my opinion. I'm the one executing on it. Like the level of buy-in that I think that creates, just because humans want to see the output of their actions and see where they added and contributed. It just makes us feel better also. Like, not to be fluffy, but if I feel better about what I'm doing that day and I think I'm actually being listened to, I'm probably going to be more enthused about those calls or those interactions.
That's right. And then also making sure that you're empowering those frontline teams to serve your customers well, right? I think one of the outputs of all this technical debt and legacy systems and processes that I talked about is ultimately impacts the customer. If those frontline agents and customer service representatives aren't able to fully serve your customers, they're the ones that suffer, because they're the ones that get passed on from person to person. And ultimately, any, really clever lifecycle marketing, upsell, cross-sell opportunities are going to be lost in that moment, because they're just getting handed over from customer service rep to customer service rep. So there's just so many reasons why they play such a critical role in the whole end-to-end strategy.
I love it. And we've all been on the other side of that, when you're on the phone and you're trying to get something done and you're getting put on hold and you're getting shunted around. The whole, like, the thing caves in on itself really quickly, versus the person's like, yeah, here, actually, let me help you with this. Yeah, no problem. We can, and you're like, is there anything else you can do for me? I'm like, no, that was amazing. Thank you so much. And I've had a few more of those recently. And I really try to be like, no, that was very helpful. Thank you. Like, you actually solved my problem. So no, there's nothing else you could do for me. As a customer, who doesn't want to say that?
That's right. And I agree. I think we are getting better at it.
It feels better recently. It feels better.
It does. But then,
with an asterisk, for sure. There's always an asterisk.
For sure. And then other times I think we've gone too far. Like, there's just sometimes you want to talk to a human being. I love, especially in banking and finance and things like that, there's so many ways which we can self-serve, but there are times where you just want to talk to a person. Yeah. And it's like, how do we, and I know this is, every industry is struggling with this, but how do you make sure that you self-serve the things that people want to self-serve, but when people want to talk to somebody, it's quick and easy and they can actually solve your problem really quickly. So that's the balance we're all striving for. Yeah. But it's a journey for sure.
Are you seeing a balance with some of that automation in terms of when someone does talk to a human, it is at the right point? Like, if I can self-serve here, yeah, let me deal with this. But oftentimes, like, can I just push 0? When you look at talking to some of those frontline conversations, when you look at your lifestyle marketing plan as it's evolving and growing, like, are you seeing that, yeah, okay, finally, when that person, is there a balance, or like you said, we over-index, but do you feel that we're heading in the right direction for the amount of in-person conversations that are happening, are allowing you then to execute on some of those more advanced strategies that maybe do take a human-to-human contact?
Yeah, like I think we're getting there, and I think we have a clearer picture of what winning looks like. And like, not all conversations are created equal, and the time in your contact center, they are expensive, right? To yes. operate and run a contact center and serve your customers well is an expensive endeavor. And so, if we can start to get that balance a little more right, if a customer's moving or there's some sort of transaction,
there's an event, back to your comment about an event right? in their life. Yeah.
If they want to, tell you about that move and facilitate it in a really simple way online, let's make sure we facilitate that. But at the same time, if moving is going to be a moment where they really want to think about their energy needs, it's a shopping moment, they're investing in solar in their new house, maybe that actually is a perfect conversation. That's better to be had over the phone than asking the customer to do all the research themselves. And so it's about really making it easy for your customer to, maybe they schedule their move on their own time and really easily online, but then you have a really quick and easy way for them.
Where's the jump off point? Yeah.
Where's the jump off point? So now they can actually say, okay, maybe it's a callback, or maybe it's an instant connect with somebody to say, okay, so what's the right energy plan for me, or what's the right, telco plan for me, or internet plan for me in my new home, and let's have a conversation about that, and let's make it really effective, so I don't have to press 9 things in the IVR to have that conversation. So that's what we're working towards, but yep. I think it's a journey.
And to be blunt, your customers are 18 to 80, and I'm just picking 80 because I don't, like, it could be 85, it could be 90, it could be 100. So that's you also got different preferences for how I want to deal with things. I just want to talk to somebody. Like, oh my God, the last thing I want to do is talk to somebody. I'm actually scared to talk to people. I just want to do it online. Like there's many personas in there that really comes down to back to our earlier comment. Like I want it the way I want it, which is personalization at scale. We're on our way there, but it's tricky. Like I think the illusion that we're there and everything can be personalized, not 100% true.
That's for sure.
Back to lifestyle marketing, even in your role, like how does someone talk to me even about the value of lifecycle marketing? Like are companies getting it? You said like in your organization, they're slowly starting to getting it. As a leader who believes in it, you were brought in with a mandate. I'm not sure how much that conversation was before you got there of like, Karen's coming in to be a lifecycle marketer, just looking at the balance between like how it's looked at in organizations versus the value it creates. And for someone listening going, I really want to move this forward, but I'm running up against resistance of even pushing the concept up a hill here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think some of that comes back to, I think sometimes as marketers, we tend to spend maybe too much time measuring the wrong things. So what I mean by that,
good statement. Yeah, I love it. Let's talk about the real thing here.
Right? I think sometimes we talk a lot about things like, click-through rates, customer engagement, cost of acquisition. And I'm not saying those aren't important things. But ultimately, as marketers, our job is to drive business outcomes. So, I think that's what we can do to really, drive value for the business. Be super clear on the business outcomes your programs are intending to drive. Are you growing market share? Are you trying to reduce customer churn? Are you driving new revenue streams? And I think if you can spend most of your time measuring these things, and then really think about, some of those more, campaign specific measurements like click-through rates and advertising, which
all should be leading indicators to the other metrics you just talked about, right?
Exactly, right? Like that's about optimizing your marketing spend. But at the foundation, what you're doing with lifecycle marketing is driving value for the business. So spend your time talking about how you're doing that, how your programs are reducing customer churn, how they're growing market share, how they're driving up sales. And then spend most of your time demonstrating and measuring those things, and the buy-in and everything else will come after that.
Yeah, you get a much more engaged audience with the C-suite when you bring up those types of terms, right?
That's right.
I heard years ago, I was at a conference and they were talking, it was B2B marketing, but they said, if as the VP of marketing, if you don't know what your VP of sales takes in their coffee, you're not doing their job because your role is to support. As a lifestyle marketer, if you don't know ... who takes what in their coffee, you're not doing your job. Who would you put in that role in that context?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've talked a little bit about your IT data and analytics team. You absolutely need to know what they take in their coffee. We've talked about customer care and sales, whatever your frontline teams are. And then I think the last one is just similar to our last topic here. It's finance. Lifecycle marketing is ultimately about driving value for the business. And I think it's important to know your numbers and be locked into the financial goals and metrics of your business.
So you're, as a lifecycle marketer or marketer period, you're taking a lot of people for coffee as I think the lesson you want, and finding out what actually matters to them. For sure. Not what matters, which really comes back to knowing what your customer cares about, not what you think they care about, which is our point way back at the beginning of this conversation.
That's right.
Do you see lifecycle marketing as something like, there's so many terms and different markets, they mean different things, or they've got different levels of maturity, whether it's rev ops or sales ops. There's we've gone through that cycle in the last 5 years. Lifecycle marketing, how's it trending in your opinion? And are companies, is this a term, and with other marketers that you know, or just looking out there into the world, whether it's conferences you attend, is this something you're hearing? Is it getting floated around more? And are people working hard to make it mean something in their organizations? Yeah,
I think it is. I think regardless of whether you call it life cycle marketing or something else, I think organizations are seeing the connections more and more into personalization, how you talk to your customers, how you drive value for the business. I think you're seeing more and more industries and organizations invest in things like marketing automation, which I know we haven't talked about yet when we talk about.
I was going to say that was an excellent pivot into like, let's talk about the tech.
Yeah, when we talked about the crawl, walk, run approach, first step, collecting your data, coming up with a solid foundation of customer segmentation. And once you've done that, then we get into marketing automation. So, I'm certainly not an expert in marketing automation platforms. There's many out there.
But the ones that you've decided to use, which I think is by default, that makes you an expert because you were a customer that said, out of this, we've all seen the slide with all the marketing tools, like they could like makes your head explode because there's 8,000 of them. What you picked is going to be critical because you still had to it's almost like hiring. It's almost like a new hire. Except you might be stuck with that platform for years once you pick it.
That's right. Because implementing these things, especially if done well, is not a small endeavor.
If done well, excellent experts on that.
That's right. If done well, So like I said, there's many out there. I personally have worked with Salesforce Marketing Cloud. I work with Microsoft Dynamics. But again, there's many out there. There's many coming onto the market that are industry specific. But I think what's key about that is it's really about making sure that you're connecting those systems to those, foundational data elements that I talked about. And that requires a lot of time and investment. But once you do that, what you'll find, because I think a lot of people, maybe you have a really, clever strategy around customer segmentation, but you get caught up in how hard it is to manage all these different customer segments at scale, right? Especially as customers take different actions. It's not like customers sit in a segment and then they sit there forever. Every single day, there's new customers, visiting your website or exhibiting behaviors that maybe suddenly they're moving fluidly through these different segments. And that's where automation becomes key, because you're never going to be able to manually manage all of this complexity at scale effectively, especially with customers visiting your website and customers logging in and calling into your contact center and buying new products. You're going to need a level of automation that really allows you to personalize and execute on each of those segments at scale. And that's where some of that marketing automation is becoming more and more commonplace in different industries.
Especially, like you said, critically at scale. I can remember 10 people in my head and probably call them back at the right time, but beyond, like, it quickly blows out beyond that for anyone who's dealing with customers. Obviously, you're on your journey. Is this something you hire for? Do you hire marketing automation people internally? Do you work with the platforms? And let's not get into which one, because this isn't a promo for Salesforce versus Microsoft. But is it a balance between having an internal team and then also bringing in an implementation team? Because finding the talent and the deep talent that you would need at scale that you're at for these platforms can be tricky, and sometimes certainly not often located in our own backyards. You've got to go abroad to find these individuals or teams to help with the implementation. How did you manage that, or probably maybe in the process of managing it now?
For sure. It's certainly a learning journey for me, and I'm definitely in the thick of it now. But for sure, because, I'm not a marketer I didn't, study marketing in university. I did a statistics degree and spent the first bit of my career
probably
working
actually serving
in
you better now, technically, if you want to look at statistics.
Right. But this is where, it's really about making sure that you're hiring and surrounding yourself, whether it's through consulting or contractors, with the people that actually really understand this space. Yeah. And so I think with marketing automation, like you said, you really go through an implementation once every few years. I mean, depending on the industry and how quickly
hopefully, because you don't really want to be changing it out every couple of years, right?
Yeah. And so for me, one-time implementations is a really applicable space for consultants and contractors that know this space well. They've learned from many other implementations. So being really mindful about getting the help you need at that time. And then the internal talent that you invest in are the ones that are actually managing that platform and evolving it over time, because that's something you're always going to need. And so for me, I think that's where you really invest in internal talent for the ongoing management of those systems. But yeah, being really mindful about getting the implementation partners that are the right ones for your platform at the time that you put it in.
Well, who builds the machine versus who operates it? And they both need to be experts, but they're different.
That's right.
And I've seen a lot of even small to mid-size try to self-implement, and often like time, money, lost opportunity is often the casualty of that.
For sure. And then you're making these investments in these platforms and you're only getting maybe 10% of the capability and the value out of them, not because they're not good tools, but because you didn't hook it up right.
If I could only use what my phone was capable of, like versus the 12.5% that I maybe used, oh my goodness, I'd probably be on it more. So I don't want to. I know. Yeah, 100%. If I could get the most out of this device, but that's such a great example. And I think kind of a word to the wise, it's often, and I see this all the time in our role, we get brought in where someone's put something together and we start asking questions. They're like, oh, well, we kind of got to here. It started doing these 3 things and then we kind of stopped. Meanwhile, it does 30 other things, for the lack of better term. And the sales cycle you go through when buying a platform, and then the implementations, it's like sometimes they don't hang out together. There is a promise of what it can do as long as you keep up your end of the bargain. And I find a lot of companies sometimes fall short there. Yes, it can do all those things, but you have to know how to do it, use it for those things, or else it won't do it.
That's
probably it might make your life harder versus better. So where are you on that cycle? Are you right in the middle of implementing some of that new? It sounds like you're in the thick of it. And if I look at your timeline on your LinkedIn, would probably put you right in the thick of it.
Yeah, well, like I said, we're in the process, the energy industry, I almost feel like it's leapfrogging some of these other industries like telecommunications and things like that.
It's an exciting place to be as a quote unquote marketer.
It's a really exciting place to be, but it has all these, it means we're moving quickly. Yes, we are looking at our marketing automation and really trying to establish a good foundation there. But because it's so interdependent, like I said, on other things like an advanced data strategy, and we're still in a position where we've got a lot of these legacy systems. So we're looking at it. We're working hard. I think there's lots of opportunity, but I feel like I'm right in the thick of it.
I love it. How, as a leader, do you stay motivated, inspired, engaged when you're trying to climb a big mountain, but there's a lot of little hills in between? Like, I guess, how important is it, or what's your strategy to not get like, oh my God, I have to climb all the way over there, versus like, oh no, I got to here today. That's cool. I'm okay with today. Like, how much, just give me maybe, how do you personally keep that all managed? Because it could be a lot. It could be a lot.
It can be a lot. And I certainly get excited, but also overwhelmed at all the opportunity.
Because you're fully grasping the situation, I think.
That's right. So we see what's possible. I guess what I try to do is try to kind of compartmentalize a small win if you can. It doesn't. You don't have to get every single campaign right, or be addressing every single opportunity within your customer base. Pick a campaign, pick a shopping moment, pick a initiative that you really want to get right, and try to figure out, go deep on that one campaign and that one initiative, and look for a win. And I think when you do that, you'll get learnings from that one campaign. I'm going to pick one: moves. Like I said, customer moving. If map out.
We can all relate. We can literally, if you're listening, you can relate to a move. Right? Yeah, you've been there.
Try doing moving really, really well within your organization, or I'm picking one that's specific to mine, but pick whatever is specific to yours.
I appreciate it. We all get it. We can all relate to your comments.
Right. So pick a campaign, pick a segment or a shopping moment. Go deep. Think about how it's connected to the customer journey, all of your systems, your marketing campaign, your pricing strategy. Pick it. Go deep. Do it well. And take the learnings from that to the next one, and just systematically try to grow from there. Don't try to boil the ocean all at once. I think is what I would try to do.
I'm assuming, like, again, with your team, back to earlier comment of people wanting to see their connection to something. Also keeping people motivated. To me, that also sounds like that strategy just flows right throughout. Like, hey, this is what we're going to focus on. Here's what we're trying to, and use the word learn. And it's not even about, it failed. We completely blew it. No, we learned this. That could have worked better. Like, again, it's almost that fixed versus growth mindset language, right? What are we learning versus did we get it wrong? Oh, we failed. We're supposed to be better. And then you just get into that cycle, which doesn't feel very good. How big's your team? Just to put context to that.
Yeah, we're a pretty small team here at ENMAX. We're a little over 20. And that's everything from pricing and packaging specialists to data analytics, marketing, enablement. A little over 20.
Which is in the context of a small but mighty team to accomplish big things in an organization where you've got literally just we'll call it the province of Alberta.
That's right.
Where do you see it heading? Not necessarily two comments, maybe for you, but I appreciate you've been really transparent about we're on the journey, we're getting better here, we're learning. But when you think about lifecycle marketing and you go to those conferences that get you excited but overwhelmed, where are you seeing like the possibility of this? And to me, it feels like a non-negotiable that no matter whether we're a startup or a large corporation, this is the thinking we need to bring to the customer. Thoughts are on that, or just what blows your hair back when you're not getting overwhelmed?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, we've talked a little bit about, the energy industry specifically. I'm really excited about what's coming with the energy transition or electrification. And I think that's going to present all kinds of new and exciting opportunities in my space. But maybe kind of more generally around lifecycle marketing. I think some of these, even though we talked about how AI and some of these emerging technologies maybe don't do everything, there are parts of it that I find I'm like really exciting and are kind of blowing my mind at what's possible. And so one in particular is, like I said, I'm not a marketer, by trade.
I don't know if I believe you, Karin, but okay. I get it though. I get it. You're very humble, Karin. You're very humble.
That's right. But I mean, and so what I mean by that, is I have to be really deliberate about stacking my team and surrounding myself with people that are creative designers or brand strategists, if we can say it that way, at heart. And, my experience has been there's a lot of talented marketers out there, but finding kind of true creative designers isn't easy. There's not a lot of them. And I had a team member actually attend an Adobe conference. I think you and I may have even talked about this.
Oh, my business partner attended it, and he came back with his mind literally blown wide open. Yes,
that's right. And what they talked about was, some of the emerging technology in this space is around using kind of AI and other technology to really not just scale programming and customer service and things like that, but to actually scale creative advertising. And so, my team member came back and she's like, Karin, something that would, take me a day to create 10 versions of something, I can create 10,000 in 5 minutes. And somehow this technology is tapping into kind of the deep creative talents of people, but actually allowing the artifacts that come out of that to scale in a way that I've never seen before. So I found that very, very exciting, because you think about being an effective marketer, those are the types of things that we're really going to need. So I was really excited about those types of things.
I watched the keynote. My business partner was down there, and he's like, you need to tune in on this. And of course, they had Coca-Cola and they had American Express and they had Visa, some of the big brands. I think it was Visa, actually, not American Express. Some of the big brands that have done it at scale. And like, as a marketing company, thinking how much time goes into production, goes into how much time, like, okay, this asset now needs to be replicated 400 times to live across all the different channels. Doing that at the push of a button and allowing, like you said, that actually human creativity to shine through to set the tone for that. And then it can optimize and do all the things afterwards. It is that true epitome of like, well, technology done well will let us do more, like the promise of tech. It'll give me more time to do the things that only humans are good at, and technology can handle the rest. And I think we're there for some of the larger, there's a period of time, but where we're headed is really quite interesting. That was the Adobe Experience Cloud was exciting. That was an exciting, overwhelmed moment for me. I had both at the same time. I'm like, oh my God, I'm excited, but I feel like I can't even climb this mountain in this moment of watching that keynote.
That's right? It's this whole concept of the I'm sure you've heard the term human in the loop, right? Where it's
Yes.
like we're using
Mm.
technology to do the things that we need technology to do so that humans can do the things that we know are critical to our businesses and our and operating.
I think the one thing that's easy to forget or easy to get wowed when you look at a presentation that was created by a world like a creative powerhouse like Adobe, it was so beautiful. But what we talked about earlier, what actually needs to happen to implement that behind the scenes is a whole other conversation that they didn't necessarily camp out on during the keynote. The wow factor was there, but implementation, to your point, that's where the rubber actually meets the road. From like the companies that are really good at implementing these types of and being open to it, those are the core competencies you need, not necessarily knowing how the AI works. Like, which is the
Right.
catch 22 with AI, right? I don't know what's in the black box, but I know how to get the most out of it for my organization. Those are the skills of the future I see as marketers or almost any role,
That's right.
which is scary and exciting all at the same time. Did you attend did you see the Grandstand show this year?
You know what? I didn't. I was away. I was away during the
Oh, doing your
Stampede, so
Finland
I
trip,
missed
doing your
it.
Finland trip.
That's
Yeah.
right, my Finland trip. Yes.
So I'm sitting there in the audience watching, and I'm not a big Grandstand show, but it was actually pretty cool. So we're watching drones like right Calgary in the sky, and they actually made a violin, and then the bow moved. Like, it was mind blowing. But then on stage was the Boston Dynamics robots, like the dogs. And there
Oh
was
yeah.
5 of them doing a little dance routine. And I was listening to the couple sitting beside me, and they're like, wow, I'm so excited about this. But I feel like I'm meeting my overlords. They're just being really friendly right now. And I was like, ooh, that was a scary. I heard more people kind of creeped out about that, but then really exciting about that. It was so funny just how we all
Yeah.
process and engage with emerging technologies.
That's right. That's right. Oh, that's interesting.
They look really friendly, but I'm suspicious. So anyway, that's just
Yeah, but I don't like
there's a
this.
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I like this, but those drones are really neat. How we
Yeah.
accept one thing as entertainment and awesome and amazing, and then we look at this robot dog and go, "Oh, well, huh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I feel about this."
Yeah, that is an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, it made me laugh, and I was like, "Oh, what a great perspective on just the world of technology, no matter what role you're in." Karen, thanks for coming on, and just like thanks for being candid, which is I know you enough to know that you will be you and show up and be honest with it. But really talking about the journey and the journey you're on, and so many marketing leaders or business leaders, it's really easy to get overwhelmed and excited about this stuff all at the same time. So understanding, pick your wins, know what you're after, one step at a time, all those cliches, they could not be more true as the world of options almost drowns us as business leaders.
Well, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
It was a ton of fun, and I look forward to. It's not, hey, I always want to leave it's obvious because we live in the world of everybody knows how to get a hold of everyone. If someone wants to chat with you, do you like LinkedIn? Is there any way that if someone wants to reach out and have a chit chat?
Yeah. Yeah, LinkedIn's probably easiest, best way to get a hold of me. Yeah, happy to connect with anyone that wants to talk more about lifecycle marketing.
And no offense to all the Karens out there with an E, but you are Karen with an I. Just to be clear, if anyone's punching your name into LinkedIn.
Oh man, I know. Well,
Karens have got a bad rap over the years, and I think COVID really piled onto the Karens. But you are Karen with an I, and I think that's how we first met, where that joke came out almost instantly.
That's right. It's a tough time to be a Karen, and like growing up in the 80s and 90s, everybody, I had all these friends that were Jennifers and Lisas, and everybody's mom was named Karen, and I thought it was the worst. But no, no, no. Actually, the latest connotation associated with Karen is much worse. So
wow.
Be kind to a Karen in your life. And yes, I'm Karen with an I. I'm totally different.
Yeah, I'll vouch for it 100%. Karen with an I, thank you so much for coming on, and really appreciate your insights, and just thanks for your time.
Thanks, Tyler.